And we are back to the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about some of the matchups of this week and what I think were the best games that happened this week. And just talk about some of the games and some of the games that I thought were good to watch and some of the games that I thought weren't relatively important to watch and some of the games that, matchups. I really liked the Philly versus Utah game. There was no Embiid, so the teams were both relatively even for the time being, if that makes sense, because they're still trying to get used into playing without Joel Embiid. So this matchup was really anticipated for me because I wanted to see how the Sixers were going to respond to Joel Embiid's injury and how they were going to, and see if this could translate more into the regular season and into how they perform. And I'm just on my phone right now. I'm going to pull up some of the games that have just happened from last week to see which were some of the best games of the weekend. The Knicks and the Pacers game that I just mentioned earlier, that was a really great game to watch. I really liked watching that matchup. And I'm not entirely sure if I would put both of those games for matchup of the week, simply because most of their players, most of the teams, both of the teams actually, they've had players that were injured, and that definitely could have affected the results of this game, because Julius Randle being hurt and Tyrese Halliburton getting hurt. That might, if they would have played, maybe the trajectory of the game would have been different, and the play style and all those types of things would have been different. The score would have been different. All those aspects would have been different. So, not entirely sure if putting that as a matchup of the week is fair, simply because of that. And that's why I didn't necessarily include this Lakers game as being matchup of the week. While it was a ridiculous matchup and it had the results that nobody expected, the Lakers ended up coming out on top, being those results. I don't see this game as one of the one of the matchups of the week, simply because it wasn't highly anticipated from me, I guess you could say. But then again, maybe that's what makes it the matchup of the week. I'm still deciding on what I think should be the game of the week. And looking at the previous schedule, Portland going against the Milwaukee Bucks at home in Dame's return, that was also a relatively fun matchup, and it ended with completely different results than what I thought was going to happen. I thought the Bucks were going to end up blowing out the Portland Trailblazers in this game, but they ended up losing because Giannis missed both free throws towards the end, on top of just not being able to produce offensively as a team, and with Dame's lack of offensive production. So that might be That might be the matchup of the week, simply because of just how close the game was and how I didn't expect that game to be close at all. And it was and his return to Portland, it was a fun matchup, and it went down to the wire. I'm not putting the Nets game as matchup of the week because KD just absolutely torched us, and the game wasn't fun after the third quarter, so I want to forget that game completely. And just looking more at some of the matchups that went and happened last week, the Bucks going up against the Denver Nuggets, that could be the potential matchup of the week that I thought was a great game to watch. It was two playoff teams, obviously, so this was a sneak peek into what the finals could hold, assuming the Bucks figure it out post All-Star break. The Nuggets have already figured it out, and they're already competing. I have them winning it all, assuming that the Clippers continue to be the Clippers and don't meet their expectations in the postseason. I'm sorry for those Clippers fans out there, but I just don't really see the Clippers being able to make it all the way when you have a team like the Denver Nuggets. So it was a game that I didn't expect. It was definitely a very highly anticipated matchup, one that I wasn't sure who was going to come out on top against. So that's definitely in the running. And not only that, Minnesota going up against Oklahoma City, the battle of the 2-1 seeds, that was definitely a really great matchup that I really liked and that I wanted to see. So that game might also be in the running for for the matchups of the week. And it's between, given the games that I just mentioned, I think it's between the Knicks and the Pacers, Minnesota against Oklahoma City, Bucks versus Blazers, and Bucks versus Nuggets. I think those 4 games are the 4 matchups of this week and 4 of the best games that happened this week. Brunson and Maxey, they both went off in their respective games, so there was a lot of scoring in the games, and they were both close towards the end. And I didn't talk about the Bucks versus the Nuggets, but actually Jamal ended the game with 35 points, so that was very fun to watch. And obviously Nikola Jokic ended with a triple-double, 25, 12, and 16. And Giannis ended with 29 and 12. Did I say Jokic or Giannis ended with 25, 12, and 16? Because Jokic ended with 25, 12, and 16. Pardon me if I made that mistake. But regardless, that was a really fun game to watch, and it was a great finals matchup. If you could remember correctly, if you remember, I thought the Bucks were going to be a finals team, like a team that could definitely make it all the way to the finals. And given that the Boston Celtics recently lost at home to the Lakers without LeBron and Anthony Davis, now I sort of think that the Bucks definitely have a chance to make it to the finals and win a series against Boston. Even though, they still have a lot to figure out on the offensive side of the ball, so does Boston in terms of figuring it out at home. I mean, maybe this is a fluke game for Boston, so it might be unfair to just take that game seriously against the Lakers. But I sort of have to because of how good they are at home. And this was the first genuinely bad team that they lost to at home. So might be something that I need to look forward with, but again, I still think that the Bucks, they just need to figure it out post All-Star break. They still have a lot to figure out, and they do have a lot of time to figure it out. So they definitely are a finals team, and that's my opinion on the Bucks. And with the other matchups that happened, everyone expected Dame to return to Rip City and go absolutely ballistic, but that ended up not happening, and we ended up getting a much better game, a much closer game. So that's also in the talks for some of the games that I liked, but I really, really liked the Knicks game. So I think I have to go with my gut, and I have to pick the Knicks game, the Knicks going against the Pacers. The Knicks didn't have Randall or OG, and the Pacers didn't have Tyrese, so the matchup was pretty even, and we didn't know who would come out on top. But I think I'm putting this game as the best matchup of the week, simply because the Knicks had an 8-game winning streak, and that winning streak seemed to be on the line going against this team. And that's another thing that I should take account. The fact that this team has won 9 games in a row, and they won with their 8-game winning streak on the line when the game wasn't looking like they were going to win. And it looked like they were going to lose in that night, but then they clawed their way back into it. Also, the officiating was a little bit off in this game. There were several missed calls which gave the Pacers the upper hand. There was at one point where Jalen Brunson literally got smacked directly in the face, and the ref didn't call it. And while he was lying on the ground, the Pacers picked up the ball from his hands, and they went and dunked it. And the crowd was absolutely furious, and so was Brunson. And once that happened, Brunson never looked back. And it was one of those moments where it was uh-oh, you poked the bear. And, that usually happens when a player instigates another player mid-game. But he was furious after this no call. So maybe it was not necessarily a poke the bear, but you made him angry type of thing. So with that in mind, and with how the game went and how the game ended, I have to go with the Knicks as being the matchup of the week, because at first, at the start of the game, with how quickly that the Pacers offense was firing, I wasn't sure if they would be able to do much, because it didn't look like their offense was doing much either, the Knicks. But with their style of play and their heart and their hustle, see what I did there with heart again, they were able to overcome it, and that's what I think a good team can do. Despite all the odds, despite when your offense isn't working, and when despite if your player isn't showing up, which he did show up, but in terms of shooting the ball, he didn't shoot relatively efficient. The same thing with DiVincenzo. He might have had 20, but he didn't shoot efficient from the field either. So the fact that even with all these stipulations, they were able to win the game in the end, I think that was very impressive, and it made the game much more entertaining to me. So for the matchup of the week, I think I'd have to go with the Knicks going up against the Pacers in this game. It's also a playoff matchup. It also had playoff implications because both of those teams could potentially see each other in the first round, and that would be a very, very good matchup to see in the first round. Something that I'm definitely looking forward to come playoff time. But with that, we are done with the fourth segment, and thus we are done with the podcast. So once again, I'm your host, Nelson Jimenez, and and as a reminder, please remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like and to subscribe and to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any app that carries a podcast. Again, as I said before, please remember to subscribe, and please remember to donate in the link that is displaying below in the ticker. As you can see, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. That's the end of the podcast. I'm your host, Nelson, and once again, take care.